The bell above the library door made a dull, tired sound as it opened. The place was mostly empty, the way it always was when the clouds hung low over the little town and the rain tapped its lazy rhythm against the windows. Naya stepped inside, her boots leaving tiny puddles behind. She kept her coat pulled tight around her, not because it was cold, but because it felt safer that way. Like if she kept her arms close and her heart closer, no one would see the parts of her that still shook from the past. She didn't belong here, not really. Not anywhere lately. But the library didn't ask questions. It didn't care if your hands trembled when you picked up a book or if you sat in the poetry section long after the sun had disappeared. She slid into her usual spot on the floor between the second and third aisle, where Rilke lived, and opened a collection she'd already read. Over and over. Some days the words hit like comfort. Today they didn't hit at all. At the front desk, Kellen sat with his chin in his hand, sketching idly on a receipt pad. He didn't work here, he was just covering for his cousin who'd run out for coffee. He was used to it. Being the fill-in. Being the guy who was good with silence. He'd noticed her before. The girl who read but never turned the pages. Who wore her silence like armor. She didn't look lost. Just, like someone who wanted to be. He watched her sit, unmoving. 20 minutes passed. No page turned. No shift in posture. Just her and a book and a kind of quiet that wrapped around her like fog. He stood slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Hey," he said gently, stopping a few feet away. "You okay?" She blinked. Looked up. Her eyes were a shade between brown and something darker, something heavy. It took her a moment to answer. Her voice was soft, almost hoarse. "I'm fine." He nodded, crouched slightly so he wasn't towering over her. "Not saying you're not. Just, you've been reading the same line for 15 minutes. She looked down at the book. She hadn't even realized. "I like this part," she said. "What's it say?" She hesitated. Then read aloud, "Perhaps everything terrible is in its deepest being something helpless that wants help from us." He smiled, not unkindly. "Rilke?" "Yeah." He sat cross-legged across from her. "He's a little heavy for a rainy afternoon." "I like the weight," she said. He tilted his head. "Yeah. Me too." 2 days later, she walked into his tattoo shop. He looked up from behind the counter, surprised but not unhappy. "You're the Rilke girl," he said. She looked wet from the rain again. Like the world never really dried for her. "You do quotes?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Quotes? Tattoos? Words?" He nodded. "Sure." She handed him a scrap of paper, folded twice. The ink had run, just a little. He opened it. "Read the line." "This is what you want?" he asked quietly. "Yes." "Wrist okay?" She nodded. The tattoo was simple. A few words, just above the pulse point on her left wrist. She didn't flinch once. Afterward, as he cleaned the fresh ink and wrapped it, he asked, "You ever think about why certain words stick?" She looked at him. "Because they say the things we can't," she said. He didn't argue. She started coming by the shop sometimes. No appointments. No tattoos. Just, sitting. He never asked why. She'd pick at her sleeves, sip the tea he always kept around, and sometimes hum a tune so soft he wasn't sure if it was real. He learned things in pieces. She used to teach English at a school a few towns over. She loved Russian literature. She didn't have a car anymore. She left her husband 6 months ago. He didn't ask what she left behind. But some nights, when the light hit just right, he saw the faint outline of a scar near her collarbone. And the way she shrank whenever a stranger walked in too loudly. She never said she was running. But she always had the look of someone who never expected to be chased. Kellen wasn't used to company. He'd built a life around quiet. After Ruby died, he'd filled his time with skin and ink and the soft buzz of his machines. It kept him from hearing the echo of her laugh in the empty apartment. Kept him from remembering the note she'd left, folded on the table, saying I'm tired. This isn't your fault. But he still carried it. Every day. Like it was inked into his chest, invisible but deep. You ever been in love? Naya asked one night. They were sitting outside the shop. Rain had finally stopped. Her hair was damp, but her eyes were dry. Yeah, he said. Once. What happened? She left. Naya looked down. On purpose? He nodded. Yeah. That's worse, she said quietly. It was, he said. Until it wasn't. How? I stopped trying to fix it. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, my husband never hit my face. He looked at her. He was too smart for that, she continued. Bruises fade. Ribs heal. But the stuff he said, it still echoes. He didn't speak. He just waited. He told me I was too soft. That I wasn't built for love. That no one would want something already cracked. Kellen's throat tightened. He lied, he said. Maybe, she whispered. But I still believe him some days. She told him about the panic attacks. How grocery stores made her nervous. How loud music felt like sirens. How she'd once gone 3 days without speaking to anyone, and it had felt like breathing underwater. He didn't try to fix her. He didn't try to tell her it would all be okay. He just listened. Some days, that was enough. You ever tattoo yourself? She asked one evening. He nodded. A couple times. Why? Because I needed to. What do they say? He pulled up his sleeve and showed her the inside of his arm. 3 small words, etched in a simple, honest font. Stay for morning. She touched the edge of the tattoo gently. It worked, she asked. Some mornings, he said. Not all. She nodded. Some's better than none. One night, as they sat in silence, the only sound was the rain and the low hum of the heater. She looked at him suddenly, eyes wide and raw. Kellen, she said, voice breaking, will you still love me when I'm ruined? He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe for a second. Then, with a voice soft as rain. Especially then. They didn't kiss that night. There were no grand declarations. No sweeping music. No firelight flickering across bare skin. Just 2 people. 2 wounds. And a silence that wasn't empty, but full of something neither could name yet. The physical therapy center smelled like antiseptic and old hope. Jameer sat in the corner, shoulders drawn up around his ears like armor. His left hand trembled, just barely, but enough to make him hate it. He wore a hoodie too big for him, sleeves stretched down to cover the fingers that no longer obeyed him. He hadn't spoken to anyone in the room. They all smiled too easily, like they were trying to convince their own bodies they were okay. Jameer wasn't okay. He hadn't been okay since the stroke last year. The doctors called it a minor one. Just a blood clot that broke loose and scrambled a bit of his brain. But it was enough. Enough to take the piano from him. Not his love for it. Not the music in his head. Just the one thing that let him speak. Now, all he had were memories of keys beneath his fingertips and the ache of silence where melody used to live. He hated the quiet now. But not more than he hated pity. She walked in late, limping slightly, leaning on a cane that had seen better days. Lane wore a red scarf and a scowl. Her hair was pulled back messily, and her eyes darted around the room like she was expecting someone to tell her she didn't belong. Jameer watched her take a slow seat on the mat across from him. He noticed how careful her movements were. Not fragile, deliberate. Like someone who had learned to make peace with pain. She caught him looking. "What?" she snapped. He blinked, surprised. "You staring for a reason?" she asked. He raised his hands in surrender. "Just, you looked like you danced once." Lane paused. Narrowed her eyes. "What gave me away?" "Your posture," he said. "Even when you sat down. It was like you didn't want to give the floor the satisfaction." She let out a short, bitter laugh. "Used to be ballet," she said. "Now it's just stairs and aching knees." He nodded. "Used to be piano." They didn't say anything else that day. But when she left, she glanced back once. Just once. And that was enough. Their second conversation happened a week later. He was doing grip exercises. She was massaging her knee, grimacing with every rotation. "You get used to it?" he asked, voice low. She didn't look up. "No, but you get tired of fighting it." "Sounds exhausting." "It is," she said. "But what's the other option?" "Disappear." He thought about that. Then shook his head. "Some days, that still sounds better." Lane looked at him then. Really looked. Not like a stranger. Not like a patient. But like someone who'd stood at the same cliff. "Me too," she said. They started walking home together. Well, walking and limping. He didn't ask what caused her pain. She didn't ask why he kept his hands hidden in his pockets. Their silences weren't awkward. They were honest. Like two ghosts whispering to each other through the fog. One evening, as they reached her street, she stopped and looked at him. "Want to hear something?" she asked. He nodded. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then hit play. A low hum filled the air, slow strings, a piano in the background, soft as twilight. Then the tempo built. Not fast. But full. Warm. Full of ache. Jameer froze. "This is mine," he said, stunned. "I know," she said. "Where did you get this?" "Found it on an old website. Someone archived your early compositions before the label shut down." He swallowed. "I used to stretch to it," she said quietly. "Before performances. It calmed my heart." He sat down on the curb. Just like that. Like the music had knocked his legs out from under him. Lane didn't say anything. She sat beside him. After a moment, he whispered, "I haven't heard it in a year." "Why not?" "Because it hurts too much." "Because you miss it?" He nodded. "I still watch dance videos," she said. "The ones that make me cry the most, those are the ones I used to do. When it didn't feel like my bones were breaking just from standing." "Why do you watch them then?" "Because I'd rather feel sad than numb." He turned his head, looked at her. "You think that's healthy?" She smiled faintly. "No, but it's real." One night, it snowed. Light, barely a dusting. The streets were quiet. The world wrapped in that hush snow always brings. They sat in her small apartment, sharing tea from mismatched mugs. She had a record player that worked when it felt like it. He had a story he hadn't told in months. "I used to compose," he said. "I know. I'd sit for hours at the keys. Until my hands cramped. Until the windows turned black." "Do you miss it?" He nodded. "But not just the music. The way I used to feel whole when I played." Lane was quiet. Then she said, "I used to feel beautiful when I danced." Neither of them looked at the other for a while. Days passed. Weeks. She laughed more now. So did he. He brought his old keyboard to her place one evening. It was dusty. Missing 2 keys. He didn't tell her that he hadn't touched it since the hospital. She didn't ask. He plugged it in. Placed his hands on the plastic keys. Nothing happened. Then, a note. Shaky. Imperfect. But real. Lane clapped quietly. Play it again. Their kisses came slowly. Not urgent. Not desperate. Like music in a minor key. Soft, aching, beautiful. The first one was in her kitchen. The second, at the piano. The third, they didn't count. Because by then it wasn't about numbers. It was about breath. One morning, she found him on the floor, crying. His hands wouldn't move. Fingers stiff and cold. Like someone had locked the music inside him again. She didn't speak. Just held him. Until the tears slowed. Until he whispered, "I'm broken." And she said, "So am I. I don't want to be." "Me either. What if this doesn't get better? Then we'll hurt together." He looked at her. "And if that's not enough? Then we try again tomorrow." Months later, they stood on a bridge as the river thawed beneath them. The ice cracked and floated downstream. "You know," he said, "there's a myth that rivers don't freeze in certain places because something's always moving beneath. What do you think that means?" "Maybe, love's like that," he said. "You can't always see it. But it keeps things alive." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "You still think you're broken?" she asked. "Not all the time." "Me either." They never got back everything they lost. But some nights, when the music played and she danced in slow, limping circles around the living room, and he picked out notes with his stubborn, imperfect hands. They didn't feel ruined. They just felt real. And real was enough. The astronomy lab stayed open late on Thursdays. Renee liked those nights best. The sky over campus was clearer then, less polluted by traffic and cafeteria smoke, and the dome roof of the observatory opened like a quiet gift. They sat cross-legged beneath the telescope, a notebook open in their lap, sketching constellations from memory. The stars felt safer than people. Stars didn't misgender them. Stars didn't ask if they was plural. Stars didn't tell them they were confused or selfish or going through a phase. Stars just existed. And burned. And glowed. Without apology. Callum sat alone in the library 2 buildings away. He liked the poetry section. Especially the books with pages warped by tears or coffee or maybe both. He liked things that had been used. Words that had been needed. He wrote sometimes. Never signed his name. Just tucked small folded poems into books he thought would understand them. He called them secret letters to the universe. The first one Renee found was hidden inside a worn copy of Adrian Rich. It was folded 4 times. Handwriting small and slanted. "If you peel back my skin. And find silence underneath. Will you still kiss me like I'm full of sound?" They held it for a long time. Then slipped it into their backpack like something sacred. 2 days later, they returned the poem. But they added something beneath it. A single line, written in green ink. Sometimes silence is just waiting for someone brave enough to touch it. They tucked it into a different book, Octavia Butler this time. It went on like that for weeks. Letters passed without names. Callum didn't know who the other person was. But he knew they understood. And that was enough. One day, the library was too loud. A school tour. Loud voices. Questions. Laughter. Renee slipped out and wandered across campus. They ended up at the old greenhouse, the one no one used anymore. They liked how forgotten it felt. Except someone else was there. A boy, sitting in the far corner with a journal balanced on his knees. Writing. He looked up. eyes wide. Sorry, Renee said. I didn't know. You found them, he blurted. They blinked. The notes. In the books. Renee didn't move. It's you, Callum said. Isn't it? They hesitated. One of us had to say it first. His shoulders dropped in relief. I hoped it was you. They started spending afternoons together. Callum liked to sit under the skylight with his journal. Renee brought their star charts and a thermos of lavender tea. They didn't talk much at first. Just breathed near each other. But breathing with someone is its own kind of trust. You ever feel like you're only half real? Renee asked one day. Callum looked at them. What do you mean? Like, the person your family sees is a ghost version. Like they only know your outline. Callum closed his journal slowly. I haven't told them, he said. About what? That I like boys. That I like anyone at all. Renee nodded. I haven't told mine that I'm neither. Neither? Not a girl. Not a boy. Just, me. Callum was quiet for a long time. Then, you're the first person I've said it out loud to. Me too, they said. They kissed in the greenhouse during a thunderstorm. It wasn't dramatic. Just soft. A question asked with lips instead of words. They held on to each other like gravity wasn't a guarantee. The fear came after. Callum stopped answering texts for 2 days. Renee didn't sleep. When he finally showed up again, his eyes were red. I don't know how to be this, he said. Not where I'm from. You don't have to be anything for them, Renee said. But what if I'm not strong enough? Then let me be strong for both of us today. They didn't fix everything overnight. Callum still flinched when people asked if he had a girlfriend. Renee still stared at their reflection like it belonged to someone else. But in the greenhouse, they built a world without mirrors. Just words. And warmth. And the slow, steady courage to exist. One night, Renee brought a projector. They set it up against the glass wall and played a video of stars collapsing and being born again. Even stars fall apart, they said. But look what they become. Callum reached out, took their hand. You think we'll make it? He asked. Renee squeezed his fingers gently. We already are. They wrote one last letter. Together. Tucked it into a book about galaxies. We are not broken things. We are beginnings. And some stars are just shy at first. The house stood at the edge of the cliff like it was tired of holding itself up. Paint peeled in strips down the sides. The roof sagged in the middle. The porch groaned when Micah stepped onto it, soft spots in the wood threatening to cave beneath his boots. He knocked twice. No answer. He checked the work order again. No name, just E. Vance and a set of repair instructions written with a kind of precision that only someone afraid of being misunderstood could manage. He tried the door. Unlocked. He stepped in slowly. The house smelled like ocean and dust and something older. Something abandoned. The walls were bare. No pictures. No mirrors. Not a single one. That was the first thing he noticed. The second thing was the silence. It wasn't the comfortable kind. It was the kind that settled on your shoulders and whispered, "Don't speak too loud or you'll wake the ghosts." He met her 3 days later. He was pulling up rotten floorboards in the back hallway when she appeared in the doorway, half-shadowed. "You're early," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. He stood. Wiped dust off his hands. "I'm Micah. I know. I hired you." Her face was partially covered by the edge of her hood. He could only see her mouth and one eye, both unmoving. "You didn't answer the door." "I don't like surprises," she said. Noted. He waited for her to step in. She didn't. You have the list? He tapped his back pocket. Always. Stick to it. Then she was gone. Like fog dissolving in sunlight. He kept working. The house needed everything, walls stabilized, wires replaced, flooring redone. But it was the mirrors that haunted him. Or rather, the absence of them. He asked once, lightly. You want a bathroom mirror installed? Her voice came from the other side of the wall. No. Anywhere else? None. He didn't push. He'd seen the scars. Not all of them. Just enough to know. A flicker of burned skin beneath her sleeve. The way she flinched when he dropped a tool too loudly. He'd worked in homes where trauma hung in the drywall. He knew better than to ask too much, too fast. After a week, she started leaving him notes. Not instructions, comments. You moved the shelf 2 inches right. Thank you. You chose warm-toned bulbs. They don't hum. Thank you. The floor doesn't creak now when I walk at night. Thank you. She always signed with just, E. He started writing back. You're welcome. Glad the quiet helps. You have good taste in wood grain. One day it rained. He stayed late, finishing the trim in the kitchen. When he turned around, she was sitting at the table, a cup of tea in her hands. No hood. He didn't stare. He noticed, yes. The way the right side of her face looked melted, like candle wax caught mid-drip. The way her eye there didn't fully open. The jagged skin that curved down her neck and disappeared beneath her sweater. But he didn't stare. He sat across from her slowly. How's the tea? He asked. She tilted her head. Hot. He smiled. I'm not used to company, she said after a while. Me either. She looked at him. How long were you alone? He shrugged. A while. Me too. Her name was Esra. The fire happened 5 years ago. She didn't talk about it directly. Just that she'd been a teacher before. Just that she hadn't looked in a mirror since. Not even once, he asked gently. Not even accidentally. How do you know what you look like now? She looked at him. I don't want to. They started eating dinner together. Nothing formal. Sometimes soup. Sometimes crackers and cheese. Once, toast with jam and silence. Micah didn't try to fix her. He just fixed the house. And sometimes he left flowers on the windowsill. Not big ones. Just little wild ones he found near the cliffs. She never said anything. But one night, he found a flower pressed between 2 notes she'd left. He brought a small mirror to the kitchen. Not to push her. Just to set on the table. It's for me, he said. So I can trim my beard without using the toaster. She didn't say anything. But she didn't move it either. One night, as wind howled through the cliffside trees, the power went out. He found her in the hall, flashlight clutched tight, breathing too fast. Hey, he said softly. It's just the storm. I know, she said, but her voice shook. He didn't touch her. Just sat on the floor beside her, knees drawn up. I was asleep, she whispered. When it happened. I woke up on fire. He closed his eyes. I still dream in smoke, she said. I still wake up thinking my face is gone. And then I remember, it is. It's still your face, he said. Not the one people want to look at. He looked at her then. Really looked. You're the only one who has to want it, he said. She kissed him 2 weeks later. Her hand touched his cheek like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. He let her decide the pace. He let her lead. And when she pulled away, he didn't say anything. Just held her hand for a while. On the last day of renovations, he brought her a gift. A mirror. But it wasn't for the wall. It was handheld. Painted soft blue. She stared at it for a long time. "I can take it away," he said. She shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "Leave it. You don't have to look today." "I know." She didn't pick it up. But she didn't put it away either. Months passed. Micah came back on weekends. Sometimes they watched old movies with the sound low. Sometimes they listened to the sea crash against the rocks and said nothing. He never asked her to be more than she was. And one morning, as the sun filtered through the broken lace curtains, Ezra stood in front of the bathroom. The mirror was still there. She looked into it. Not long. Just enough. She didn't smile. But she didn't look away. And that was enough.